Hello. Today I want to make my arguments to promote women in the military and certain other traditionally male roles. Now, women have already been around the military for over 50 years, but I still occasionally hear people make the argument that they should all be taken out of service. And two people in particular have made that statement. They both make it for different reasons, but I'm going to go ahead and counter-argue every statement they've ever made. The first one I heard was that women can't fight. And that statement was ironically made by a pogue from the Air Force, but he used to be a competitive fighter a really long time ago. And so he felt justified in making his statement. Basically, when it comes to hand-to-hand combat, women pretty much can't fight. I've been doing martial arts a long time, all around the country in various different styles, and I've never met a woman who could get even close to beating me in any kind of melee sparring. But here's the thing. Melee era of military endeavors was a really, really long time ago. I mean, a really long time ago. Right now, we are looking at a modern military that is based primarily on projectile weapons power. So whether or not a soldier can even fight is kind of a moot point, in my opinion. Ironically, he was making those statements when the Air Force was about to drop him for being perceived as having no value. I mean, if we wanted to let some insane artist who later joined the military make his recommendations on the cutoff point of who can serve, which I guess he was a semi-pro fighter at one point in time, we would probably lose like 80% of our military. All of our critical systems would be down, and quite frankly, we'd even lose some significant portions of the infantry. Just to have one insane little artist fetish satisfied with, oh, can these guys scrap? Now, as far as projectile weapons fighting is concerned, the ballistic properties of almost every weapon system will be the same regardless of who is firing it. So we really are living in a different world these days. The other argument, he said, is that women are supposed to be wives and mothers. And that is true. The thing is, the way we have it now, they still do that, but it kind of gives us an extra advantage of finding out what our personnel are capable of. Like, if you read a whole bunch of ancient history books, actually all the people were always fascinated with eugenics. Even before the term was invented, that's really all they cared about. If you listen to the crap they said, they'd always be like, blah, 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 I'm a strong man and I want a woman who can bear me a strong son. And then it's like, so how do you select the woman to bear you a strong son? Well, we just have them sit around cooking and doing laundry and then just take whichever one's prettiest. And I assume that's going to make the strongest son. Basically, they were fascinated with this idea for millenniums, but they never really thought that, like, hey, you know, maybe you should evaluate all 46 chromosomes that are going into this new person instead of just concentrating on your 23 and not even really considering what's going on with this other system. I mean, the way it works now is basically women come and they serve for a few years and then they usually get out and marry some other guy who's doing really well and have kids, and those are tiny little eugenics projects. And some of them even stay in uniform while they're having their kids, and I totally support that too. Is there another important one? Protecting women. Yes, protecting women is extremely important and a traditional value. However, there is a way of evaluating whether something is critical or more of a values-related concern. And I'll give you an example. Let's say we were looking at a dilemma where, oh my God, 40% of the US population is going to die but we know a little bit ahead of time, and can we get our women to safety? That's an extremely important thing to do because, I mean, the women can reproduce and the men really can't. So it's a no-brainer. The thing is, if you look at the statistics of our casualties, it goes out to every single person who's been down, and I don't want to belittle what still happens, but statistically speaking, military service is pretty safe right now. And so to a certain extent, if you're limiting a person's career just because of you're making a concern for their safety, at a certain point it becomes more of a just you're being traditional. But as far as how much this is really going to hurt the reproductive potential of the United States, it's like a very, very, very tiny mathematical percentage. The other argument came from, let's just say, an anonymous army captain who really had a Roman column shoved up his ass. I was making the argument to him that women in the military are a good thing because it might hold back these sort of bisexual tendencies that tend to arise in a lot of prolonged military situations. And as soon as I made that argument, he made a very fervent argument. I think they should all be kicked out of the military immediately. I mean, his argument was basically that women aren't real soldiers and all they really do is paperwork. Well, you know what? Paperwork is hard as shit. I can barely read and write, and I don't understand any of that crap, and I pretty much have to rely on another person to help me for my own sustainability. So if you're messing with people who just do paperwork, it actually pisses me the fuck off. But the ironic part about him too is that he did a little bit of time riding around in a tank and then relegated to a career of just doing paperwork and occasionally making the talking point that he rode around in a tank for a while. So the other component that's fighting women in the military is basically every military unit, even an infantry unit, is going to have tasks that are basically feminine tasks, but they're important tasks that need to get done. And this goes all the way back to anthropology. I mean, basically humanity started just walking around in platoons, and they had men and women in the same infantry platoons way back at the very beginning. And so even at some of the smaller levels, there's still a need for more feminine properties to accomplish certain tasks. And throughout a lot of human history, we just kept all women out of the military. And so there's actually a secret ancient society of military gay guys who have been doing the traditionally feminine jobs that the military has needed done for thousands of years. And they're actually upset about the advent of biologically female personnel because it's stealing their jobs. A new topic that's come up recently is women in the infantry. I personally have never met a female infantry soldier before. They actually started that after I left. I am personally okay with it. A lot of people are making these arguments of whether or not they deserve to wear the blue cord. Look, it's all a matter of opinion, but most of the people who really covet the blue cord are people who had to struggle a little bit harder to get it. Now, for me, I'm blue blood. My DNA basically is infantry. I have so much natural genetic aptitude that I honestly thought Fort Benning was a joke. The only 2 times I even had to struggle were because I disobeyed a direct order. And other than that, everything the Army has is pretty much just going to be smooth sailing for me because my DNA is just so freakishly hard. I actually got bored and wanted to move on to other more exciting endeavors. And there was this weird conspiracy to like keep me infantry forever. But I mean, as far as I'm concerned, like, yo, if you want this thing, you can go ahead and take it. I don't give a shit. Like, the only thing I really wanted was one of these. I wanted it more than anything else in the world, and I couldn't get it. So whatever the pain of these female infantry women are going through when they weren't allowed to be infantry, I don't understand that. But actually, there are a lot of really pretty girls who just aren't dyslexic, who had one of these thrown at them practically without even trying. And they don't value that very much, but they covet the infantry. Anyone's upset about these infantry women, I'm just like, hey, you know, whatever you're dealing with is your problem because you forgot to put a very important person on payroll. But I mean, when you look at people and their skill sets and what they can do, everyone has a different background and a different story, and I just love to see people try and do as well as they can. Like, you know, when I was in the Virginia Tech Corps of Cadets, they actually had a Marine Corps standard obstacle course. I remember how cute it was to watch these girls struggle to get over even one of the obstacles. I did this like PT club thing where you do it like hundreds of times over and over again. And then one time I just sat around at an apartment getting high for 3 hours straight. And then I walked 2 miles over to the O course in the middle of the night and lit up a joint and did the entire obstacle course with a lit joint in my mouth. You know, that's the way Black Ops train. But it's all about where you want to stake your values at. I mean, basically there is concern that training programs might get a little easier if you let women in. Well, to me, it's kind of like saying, if I open a gym, I should only allow men to train at the gym. Because if there are women training there too, then it'll diminish the capacity. Well, we might just have to accept that whatever fitness endeavors you want to strive for are going to have to go into more of a personal realm. And you can get really freakishly strong working out on your own at a gym while other hot women are just doing like Pilates and stuff there too. I mean, you don't have to have this uniformity. And the idea that you need that so badly is, in my opinion, detracting from other things that might be more valuable. So, I mean, there are a lot of endeavors that are thought of as traditionally masculine that it turns out women can do better at. For example, engineering. I actually have the highest spatial analysis scores of anyone to ever take the IQ test up until the year 1986. But I can barely read and I don't really study that hard, and I pretty much just like to work out and get high. So there are actually a lot of women who did better at the engineering classes than I did. Computer programming is a traditionally male role. I actually have a computer programming degree. The thing is, I really just couldn't sit down in a chair and put that much time into it. Like, I can learn fast, but I actually found that there's like some woman in England who can program computers, video games like way, way better than I can, so I can't stake my claim there. BRM is a pretty good one. When I was deployed to Egypt, I actually scored 40 out of 40 with an M203, and I was getting high right before I shot to test to make sure I could still shoot while I'm high. And yeah, that's okay, but there are some women who have been doing competitive sports shooting since they were children, and they're just gonna be better at BRM than I am. So I just stake my claim in hand-to-hand combat because that's the 100% guaranteed thing that no woman will ever beat me at. I'm going to open the playing field for them to take over all the other traditionally male terrain. The only thing they can't possibly conquer is me. I mean, that's just a fantasy that none of you will ever achieve. It's kind of sad that I didn't invest in that earlier. Like, my original goal was pretty much just to be the most efficient manager of projectile weapons fighters. And then when I had my career stolen out from under me, I just coincidentally was also really good at hand-to-hand combat, and I'm legally not even allowed to touch a gun anymore. And so I just kind of relegated over to that field late in life because that's all I had left. And that's how I became SS Street Fighter. So go ahead and leave a like and subscribe, and leave a comment of what you think of women in the military, the infantry, other traditionally masculine roles that they're moving into now. And have a nice day. SS Street Fighter signing out.